Hello, everybody. Warm welcome. Good afternoon or good morning or evening, depending where you are at this moment in the world. And welcome to the McAdemy, our webinar From APO to Better IBP. We will give the other attendees a brief minute to log on. We see a lot of people are still registering and attending, so we will start in a few moments. Until that time, let's just start with a little bit of practical information about today's session. All participants will be muted during the sessions. Of course, there's always room for questions. On the right side of your menu, you will see a panel where you can answer or enter questions. Our team is on the other side, and they will try to answer as much of your questions as possible during the session. They will even pick out a few of those questions which we can handle during the Q&A session, which will be by the end of the presentation. And of course, the recording and the materials will be shared afterwards. So this session will be recorded. So hope that you will agree with that. If not, feel free to log off. I'll just wait one more minute to give the attendees room to register. See, a lot of people are still joining the session. I will start with an overview. I think we have an interesting agenda for today. The team is, of course, From APO to Better IBP, and we will try to explain why you should move to IBP. We will start with that. Then we will have a brief overview on IBP as a system, what the tool is about and how the tool can support your supply chain. Then we will have a generic demo on SNOP. That's one of the modules within the IBP system. We have an interview with Michael Kramer from Lumines. He is one of our clients. They are using IBP for the last years, and they also had the transition from APO to IBP. So during the interview, Michael will give his vision on IBP and the move from APO to Better to IBP. Afterwards, we will dive back into the system. One of my colleagues, Carla, she will present the generic demo on response and supply, so the more order integrated module of IBP. And then finally, we will conclude with the perfect planning guard, one of our tools which could help to optimize the use of IBP even further. And then by the end of today's session, we have room for questions. And as said before, feel free to leave your questions in the chat and in the question box on the right, and you will receive answers immediately from our team. So before we start, hello and again, welcome. My name is Jeroen van Tol. I'm the unit leader of the IBP practice within McCoy & Partners, and co-presenting today is Carla Gomez. She's one of our senior IBP consultants, and she will explain today the response and supply module. For the ones who do not know us, we are from McCoy & Partners. McCoy, we are a SAP solution partner from the Netherlands. We have offices in the Netherlands and in Belgium. We have around 150 consultants, and we are 100% focused on SAP. And our mission, and which is also beautifully represented in our brand logo, is to deliver the perfect score. This means that we will always strive for 100%, and then whether this is about quality of our consultants, services we deliver, but most important of all is the customer satisfaction we try to deliver within our projects. Our philosophy is, by that way, to make IT enable your business, nothing else, make it simple. Simply McCoy. So before we dive into the system, the first section will be to explain why we should move from APO to Better and how IBP can support this as a tooling. First of all, we want to take a brief moment to have a look on one of the models Gartner is presenting on the different maturity stages you can have within your supply chain. Usually, when you begin to manage your supply chain, you're at the first stage, the bottom section. And at this stage in your supply chain, you are focused on service. You are focusing on delivering products towards your clients. At a certain stage, you will become more mature. And at that stage, it is actually necessary to create a more operational and volume plan. At least you have to be able to plan forward in time and to make an estimation if your capacity is enough to handle the demand going through your supply chain. A lot of times at this stage, you can still fulfill these requirements. It's on a high level as an OP, using Excel files or using advanced Excel files, what we see a lot of times at customers, and which you probably can recognize, is that you manage with a lot of complex macros and custom developments in Excel, a simple S&OP process. And at that stage, this could or should already cover your requirements. But at a certain stage, you would like to grow, and your company is growing, and your mindset should shift. So it's not only about fulfilling the demand, but it's also more about balancing the demand with your supply and really focusing from an end-to-end perspective. So you would have, for example, more locations in your supply chain. So your supply chain will become complexer. You have multiple options to source products from one location or the other, or to source in different factories, or maybe you have different production lines. In that case, your Excel file will most likely not fulfill those requirements anymore. And from that stage, you have the need to have technology. And that's the reason why we put this box around the higher stages. So at that level, you do need a solution to support the decision-making process within your company. If you are at that stage, you would like to grow even further. And then the next step would be the fourth stage, where you not only try to balance your demand and supply, but you try to balance your demand and supply, also trying to give the optimal profitable outcome of your supply chain, and of course focusing on high service levels towards your clients. So that requires other kinds of techniques that, for example, requires a finite scheduling, but also you should include volume and value, because to be able to derive profitable decisions, you need information on the cost and on the benefits of certain decisions in your supply chain. And this is usually the stage where the predecessor, APO, what we are talking about today, is not 100% fulfilling the requirements. People in this call who are working with APO might recognize it, that it's not really easy to have good visibility on the value part of your supply chain within this solution. And this is already a starting point for the IBP solution, is where IBP tries to help to combine this volume and value and really try to be more profitable in your decision-making process. And from that point, you can even rise to higher levels, stage 5, as by Gardner also explained, as to orchestrate. And this is where you really want to orchestrate your supply chain. And you will define yourself more on optimizers and machine learning algorithms, where the system can help you make these more profitable decisions. This is, of course, the highest level you can achieve. A lot of companies, they are trying to achieve the third level, and maybe from the third level towards the fourth level. And in any case, to achieve this level, it is necessary to make sure that you have a system which can support both from the volume and from the value perspective. So if you then take a look on the move from APO to IBP, on the left side, we have draw the supply chain as it was in APO. It was an on-premise system. Within APO, you had different kind of modules, like, for example, the demand planning module, the production planning module, supply network calculation, and available to promise. APO was connected to your ECC or S/4HANA landscape via the SIF. This is the core interface. And via the SIF, the data was immediately real-time integrated to your APO platform. There was a real-time connection, and also operation and execution, for example, in the available to promise, were mixed between the two systems. While moving to the future landscape and moving to the S/4HANA landscape, there has become a difference. IBP, in this picture called the suite, IBP will focus more on the tactical planning and will be near to the operational planning by certain modules, but it will be more planning on the tactical level and trying to connect your planning with your execution. Below that, there will be the digital core, meaning your S/4HANA system. And your S/4HANA system could be advanced with products as, for example, the order confirmation. So in the future landscape, there will be really a split between operational and executional and planning activities, meaning that the planning activities will take place in your IBP system. So IBP will be dedicated for planning. The connection will be near a real-time connection, and your executional, like the order confirmations, but also the detailed scheduling, will in the future belong to your core system, as these are more core activities. And with this philosophy, there will be a split between planning and execution, and the different kinds of processes will have a more logical place within the SAP suite. So if we then take a look at IBP as a product, IBP is a cloud-based product and consists of different kind of modules. We highlighted two main modules here. This is the sales and operation module and the response and supply module. In the sales and operation module, you're working more on a time-based level. So the lowest possible level of planning will be a time bucket, like for example, a calendar week. In the response and supply model, you're working on the order integration. So here you're working more real time and near the operational planning. So the lowest possible level in this module of SAP will be the actual sales order or production order you have in your ECC or in your S/4HANA system. The other modules we will call more advanced modules, like for example, IBP for demand, IBP for inventory, and IBP for demand-driven IBP. The IBP for demand will be more advanced demand planning modules, like for example, a demand sensing algorithm, which is a machine learning algorithm, which can help to smoothen the demand on the short-term horizon, trying again to bridge the gap between the tactical and between the operational planning. Inventory optimization will help you to multi-echelon define where you should put your safety stocks in your organization and give a better input to your supply process by optimizing your supply chain across the full network. And IBP for DDMRP defines how you can run demand-driven MRP within your IBP system, which is highly integrated to your S/4HANA or your ECC system. This all is controlled by the supply chain control tower, which gives you an overview on your supply chain and which will help you to work on exception-based management within your supply chain. This all, of course, seamlessly integrated with your S/4HANA system. Next to that, you have better and intuitive user interfaces. So that was a gap APO had. That APO was a proper planning system, but a lot of people were complaining about the screens and about the way of working within this tool. Within IBP, you have an Excel interface and a web-based interface, which are more user-friendly and which will give more possibilities to control your supply chain. You will see this in one of our demos, actually in both of our demos, the difference between the web and the Excel-based interface. Next to that, and giving IBP the real power, is the real-time scenario planning and versions. So you can define versions and scenarios, which we will also demonstrate in one of our demos, is how you can work with versions and scenarios to really perform this what-if planning on your supply chain. Because we know that one plan is never a good answer, and you would like to see the opportunities and what would be the impact of different decisions in your supply chain based on your availability, based on balancing demand and supply, and compare different versions with each other. IBP will give you this possibility. And last but not least, you have a flexible and scalable model, meaning you will combine supply, demand, finance into one model and be able to really move to IBP instead of only an S&OP process and integrate more than just your supply chain department. And for example, also integrate your financial and your sales department by talking about the same set of numbers. So that gives us the next picture. So within IBP, you will balance around a single operating plan. So the good part of that is everybody will be talking about the same set of numbers. Around those numbers, you will have your supply planning, your demand planning, your product planning, and all that combined with your financial planning. And this will give you the full end-to-end visibility on your supply chain, combining the departments and making sure that you can plan from an end-to-end perspective. Around it, there are a couple of solutions supporting this process to really help you to make the proper decision. For example, in terms of performance management, there are several kinds of KPIs within IBP, within the model, which immediately will give you the correct insight and where you have gaps or issues within your supply chain. So you can identify and resolve them via, for example, alerts and via communication with each other via the tool. You can help and you can support your issue process from an end-to-end perspective and really even across time zones, solve and identify issues. It will help you to increase your supply chain performance by optimizing, for example, the sales forecast accuracy, or by running several kinds of heuristics in a finite or in an infinite plan to really see the impact and to balance your demand and supply with each other. And that, of course, all, as said before, integrated with financial, that you can really move from sales and operation planning to integrated business planning and to make more profitable decisions. So then from a user interface perspective, as said before, it will be more flexible for a user. One of the main interfaces is Excel. You will see it in the demo, which we will present in a moment. And also within the web, so giving you more opportunities, but also a better look and feel, better insights via dashboards, which will help you to identify gaps and issues in your supply chain. This all will be supported by the control tower, where you can work exception-based. Instead of looking for the issues, the system will help you to identify where you have gaps and where you have issues in your supply chain. And these all helped by SAP Jam, kind of social platform where, as said, you can have the interaction and have online collaboration, identifying cases and sharing information across your supply chain and across your departments. So the move from APO to IBP, we always say that it's a journey and it takes continuous improvement. So IBP has quarterly releases, and each quarter IBP will improve even more compared to the first quarter. And there's a large roadmap for the coming years where IBP will gain more and more maturity and will include more and more processes and functionalities. To conclude or to highlight on this part, for example, in demand planning, we believe that IBP is much stronger in demand planning with machine learning algorithms, with demand sensing, driver-based planning, and of course with the simulations. In supply network calculation, we think that there are a few gaps within response and supply compared to S&P, but also a lot of improvements. One of the examples is the TLB, although this is on the roadmap. So next year, a part of this gap will already be fulfilled, as that part of the solution will be included as well. Global available to promise, this will move to the S/4HANA suite. Within the global ATP, at this moment, not all the functionality of the rules-based ATP are there, but there's also a roadmap on that area. And in the next years, there will be a lot of improvements, and it also defines on your process. Control tower, where we have the alert monitor before, control tower will really help you and will really help the business to identify the exceptions and the gaps within your supply chain. And there's a lot of benefits in IBP compared to the APO solution. Just to highlight what we believe are the major improvements from IBP over APO, and then we will jump to a short demo to really demonstrate these functionalities and what are the capabilities of IBP. So first of all, the performance. IBP is based on cloud and it's based on a HANA database. So this means that there's much more opportunity to run on the spot another heuristic for your supply chain. Where if you have APO, you notice that in APO, sometimes it takes a night batch or 1 or maybe 2 hours to rerun your supply calculation. With IBP, we already have seen cases from other clients where we can run a full heuristic on the full supply chain within 1 or 2 minutes, which will give you the real possibilities to get everything out of your solution and to really simulate and analyze your supply chain. Of course, the user experience, we have mentioned this part before. We have the flexible data model, so the demand, supply, finance, and all available from one source of truth. The what if and simulations, which we will demonstrate in the next demo. And then, of course, we have the advanced customer-centric planning opportunities. So there are much more opportunities, like, for example, the inventory optimization, demand-driven MRP, the demand sensing, and priority-based heuristics and optimizers, which can really help you to get the most out of your supply chain. And last but not least, I said it before, the continuous improvement. So each quarter there's a new release, and each quarter the system will reach another stage of maturity and will include more possibilities to optimize your supply chain. Then let's move to a quick demo, because it's nice on slide, but it's even better to show this within the system. Before we do this, we will have 2 short demos today. The first demo will be on the time series planning. So this is the S&OP module of IBP. So here the lowest possible level of planning will be a weekly, a calendar level. And this is the one which will support your S&OP processes. In the next demo, but before that, we will first have the interview with Michael Kramer. In the next demo, we will show the order-based planning, so you can see the difference or actually not see the difference, but only see the difference in terms of the operations you are performing, but you are still working with the same look and feel. It doesn't matter if you work in the time series or in the order-based planning. So it's not that you have to get used to different kinds of screens. The only thing is that on one hand, you work on a time bucket. In the other hand, you're really identifying operational issues based on actual order information. And what we will demonstrate as well during this demo is the power of these what-if simulations. And this is something we did not have in a proper way in the APO solution, and where we do have all capabilities now, is that here we can simulate in different kind of versions. So we could have a base version and two different versions around it, each having own data, and you can copy master data and key figures between those versions and really analyze and compare different versions with each other and simulate them across your supply chain to see the impact of those different versions. And there we believe we can really have an advantage of running IBP over APO. And it's better to demonstrate in the system than only to explain this via a slide. So let me switch to another screen and run you through a simple demonstration of the SNOP module. I can also, sorry, my sound was muted. I can see the same information in one of my dashboards, and here I can combine forecast, demand, supply, financial data, which I have in the system. Another example is I can see my utilization dashboard, and here I can see that in 2 weeks I have a utilization issue in my supply chain. So I would like to analyze this. Before I do, I want to have a quick look at my sales forecast, and here you see that I'm in Excel, but I now have an Excel ribbon available within my Excel. In the lower section, this is the information controlled by the IBP system, and you can see different kinds of key figures like my actuals, my budget, and I can see both volume and value in one slide. So there I already have the combination of my volumes and my values in one point of view, and where I can simulate playing with both the numbers if I would like. And of course, there could be authorizations who is able to do what. In this example, I'm now including several versions. So I have a baseline, an upside and a downside version of my plan to simulate what would happen if I have a better or a less proper plan in place and what the impact would be on my supply chain. So here you see that the first key figures do not change because the actuals, they will always remain the same. The other key figures like the forecast and the planned price are now open, and I can apply changes in those different versions. So at the same time, and I am now working in 3 different versions of my supply chain, where I can simulate what if my forecast would be higher, would be lower, or what if I would stick to my baseline? What is the impact from a supply chain point of view, and what is the impact from a financial point of view? And this all at the same time. So here, I'm also creating a scenario. So on top of my versions, I can create a scenario. A scenario is more personal, and I can share it, as I just did, with 2 or 3 colleagues. This gives me the opportunity to play with the numbers without playing the actual versions. And the actual versions are visible for everyone. This scenario, which is now included, is only visible for me as a user and the users on which I shared my plan. So that gives me another possibility to perform the what if without touching the actual numbers, but with the opportunity to see the impact. As it is Excel, and as you have seen, I can combine normal Excel functionalities with the IBP functionality. So here I can uplift the plan with, for example, 20% by just a simple Excel formula, and afterwards save this result in my database. As said before, I have the possibility to play around with both volume and value in those 3 different versions, so I can see directly the impact from a volume and a financial perspective. So I'm saving my information in the system, and now all these versions are updated, but only in my scenario. So this means that within my scenario, I have now entered and changed data, which is only visible for me and the 2 or 3 colleagues for which I have shared this plan. And I can see and analyze the impact. And that information is now available in my Excel, but also available in my dashboarding solution. So I can analyze directly the impact of changes I've made to my plan. So let's move on. Let's go to the supply planning view. And here you see I have the end-to-end perspective of the supply chain available. I can still see my sales forecast, but I can also see my consensus demand. We have the same numbers in the same database, but I have a decision to split between my demand and supply. So I can run my supply on validated numbers, having a real cut-off moment. Still in supply, I both have my volume and finance figures available, giving me, again, in my supply, directly the impact. In this case, what would be my operating result if I would run a heuristic? In the bottom section, you would see that I can analyze my complete supply chain from my customer demand all the way down to my external receipts, including the transportation, the production, and the available capacity. And the plan I just created is also available in this view. So in this case, I'm adding now the scenario I just created and my baseline scenario. So this gives me the opportunity to simulate and to play with both the numbers from demand and supply. And for example, I can now run a heuristic based on my different versions. So it could be on my version, it could be on my scenario. So if I would open my operator, and this is where I can run, for example, an unconstrained heuristic on my supply plan, I have the opportunity to run this on a specific scenario, on a specific version, or any possible combination. So I can immediately run the same scenario for my different versions in both the baseline as my own scenario. So that again gives me the opportunity to play around with the numbers and to make sure that I can analyze my supply chain from all the versions and scenarios, and especially in my scenario, I can analyze before promoting this. Within my supply chain, I can also source my data from different locations, so I can decide to which factory my demand should go. In this case, it's a simple 80-20. And also within this scenario, I can easily play and change the loading and to see what impact this change of loading would have on my supply chain. All the information I would need would be available within this plan. So I can really analyze from my customer demand to my transportation, finally up to my capacity planning. And here I can see that in a couple of weeks, via an alert mechanism, I do have my capacity resource overload as shown in the dashboard before. So in this case, I want to do simple capacity leveling. And before doing anything in my real version, I want to simulate in my scenario what would happen if, for example, I would update my shifts from 2 to 3 shifts a day, raising my capacity to see the impact. If you would combine this with a value picture, that for example, an additional shift would have more cost, then I can analyze from both cost and supply chain perspective what this impact would have. And as I'm running this in my scenario, this means that I am really simulating the what if question only within the group which is sharing this scenario. So this gives me the opportunity again to play with the numbers, to simulate the what if question before I promote anything to my real scenario or to any other MPS system, for example. In this case, I see that this balancing is working. So I'm deciding to move and also include the additional shift in the real baseline version. And this means at this moment, if I save the data, all this data is now visible for everybody who is using this baseline version. So that again gave me the opportunity to simulate, but afterwards to make sure that I can promote this simulation and also perform the capacity leveling I just tried in my baseline version. So if I would go back to my dashboard and put a refresh on my dashboard, I will see that now my dashboard, also in here, my capacity has been leveled. So the dashboarding is directly connected to the database, which will make sure that my reporting doesn't have to wait for any overnight batch, but I can immediately report based on the information available in my IBP system. So to conclude this small demonstration, you also, of course, have inventory books where you can see the actual stock on hand loaded from your ECC or S/4HANA system. And then based on the supply plans, based on the safety stock levels you will set, analyze your projected stock. And again here, both in volume and value, to see what would be the impact if I would run a different kind of version, or if I would change my safety stock, what would be the impact on my supply chain and on my projected stock in volume and in value. And last but not least, if I agree, I can always decide to promote a plan and to make a plan my baseline version and to share this version with the rest of the world. So this gives me again the possibility to simulate the what if question and only promote if I have approval or if I've shared this version with different kinds of colleagues. So that was a short demonstration on the IBP tooling. For the next part of the demonstration or part of the agenda, we will move to an interview. We have had an interview with Michael Kramer. He is one of our clients. He has been using IBP for a couple of years. They had to transition from APO to IBP, and we're going to listen to his story.
Gentlemen, welcome to our IBP seminar, From APO to IBP. And to kick it off, we have an introduction session with Michael Kramer from Lumileds. And Michael is someone who can actually comment on the whole move from APO to IBP, since this was something they did at Lumileds over the last couple of years. So welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Tom.
Maybe we can kick it off, Michael, by a brief introduction of yourself and the company Lumileds.
Yeah, of course. I'm working for Lumileds, a former Philips company. My main role there is in supply chain management. And the last years I did work there as an IBP program manager. And we implemented IBP from end of 2017, and we went live early 2019, so 15 months project. And my key role in Lumileds since the go live of IBP is to improve and stabilize the supply chain processes in S&OP and in the link to IBP and IT. So to be the linking pin between the IT and the business organization, and to define the improvement concept, the roadmap to continuously improve.
Nice, sounds good. Sounds like an interesting role as well to be the like say the linking pin between IT and business.
Yeah, exactly. So many challenges and to understand both worlds, but this is a key the success factor in my opinion. You need to speak one language in the end and not optimize in both ways, but working together as a team.
Yeah. Is business happy, Michael? Just moving one step ahead?
Like we are just went live with a project with a key improvement for IBP. And when we look on the journey we made over the last 2.5 years, I think happiness is continuously growing, the happiness factor. So still something to improve, but we become more happy over the last couple of months.
Great, thanks. Can you tell us something about Lumileds as a company?
Yeah, so as mentioned, it's a former Philips company. So as Lumileds, we have basically two business units. So one is focusing on the automotive part as a tier 2 supplier for the automotive market, and the other one is for the consumer electronics. And there we are also one of the suppliers for the LEDs. And this is like we have 6 manufacturing sites and 2 packing warehouses. And we have a supply chain over the complete globe, and we produce also components which we manufacture in other companies until we come to finished goods. And then we serve, of course, our customers. We have like OEM customers in the automotive industry, which are very demanding, that you always have to deliver and follow their plans, deliver just in time. And then we also have the consumer market, like in aftermarket, where it's not that much predictable. Sales are coming, but you can generate then there a lot of cash if you are able to satisfy your customers' demand. So as Lumileds, I think, yeah, we are in the US, in Europe, and in Asia, and also our customers are there. And now the business is changing from traditional lamps to LED. So this is also one challenge for the company currently.
Yeah, you must have had an interesting year being in the car supply area last year with COVID, or was it okay?
Yeah, like all of a sudden then, yeah, in Europe and also the US and Asia, the demand dropped or almost became zero in April, May. And then it increased suddenly again. And now, yeah, we are back and over. Yeah, the demand just is keeping growing from August, September, October in the automotive business. In the LED business, it's a bit different, but also there our loading is at the moment at a good level. And yeah, I think end of 2020 is better than the beginning of 2020 at the moment.
Good. So being global as a company, and then of course having external impacts like COVID-19, etc., makes it even more important to be able to plan on the correct level, of course, and have the right tools to steer your production. Can you tell a little bit about the supply chain challenges that you see at Lumileds, which made you actually move to IBP in the first place?
Yeah, key challenges are of course to have one operating plan for the company, like that we align the business planning and the supply chain planning, and that we align the mid-long-term planning with the execution, so that we have an accurate plan, which becomes the reference along the supply chain, from demand planning to replenishment planning to production planning in the end. And to also fulfill the different requirements of our business units. Because if there is another process we need to follow, then also adapt our S&OP process or then the solution we use in IBP. So the one reference, I think this is a key benefit from IBP in the last years, that there are not too many figures like in each Excel file you look, or when you look another day. There's in IBP always one reference for each and every one, which is then translated from demand, replenishment, and production figures. And we were a former APO company, or we had 2 planning tools per business unit. And yeah, we then had 15 months to implement IBP as one tool for the company, and also to roll it out to supply planning. So with APO, we did only cover like the demand planning part, and supply planning was done manually. And yeah, this was one of the key challenges, but also a big improvement in the end, because when you have then one tool instead of 2 tools, and also cover like the end-to-end process, this was a great benefit of the IBP implementation.
Yeah, I reckon. So not only you were able to consolidate all your planning systems, even though it were technically the same, but it were 2 different in any case. So you replaced that by one global planning tool.
Yes, of course we also still have for consolidation another SAP solution like BPC. So I would call it that we have ECC for the execution, we have then financial planning, and then we have the supply chain planning. But indeed, we replaced 2 supply chain planning tools by one supply chain planning tool, and also incorporated then more functionality in this one tool.
Okay, so excuse me for this, I will turn this one off. Michael, so looking back, would you say that you were able to realize the goals of the project, and then not only the technical ones where you replace 2 or 3 tools by one, but also the business requirements that you had?
Yeah, the journey was a long journey if we come to this. So it was more an overall program we started at Lumileds, where we replaced a couple of IT tools with newer and more up-to-date solutions. And of course, also APO is running out of service, which was in our mind. And our key mission was, without any interruption, we need to keep the business alive. So even if we are an IT project, when we go live in March, the business needs to continue without any interruption. So this one, we did succeed, definitely. So there was no interruption and the planning was stable in IBP. When we then come to all the business requirements and improvements, which were of course also key when you spend 15 months on a project, it was like for month over month, we were enabling more functionalities and we were learning by doing or like using the tool. So the first cycle, like we are in the monthly S&OP cycle, of course, it's more like a basic. Everyone is just keeping the figures stable to understand it. And then in the next months to see, okay, what went well, where do we need to improve? Or maybe which functionality we did not use, and every user did learn more. So after the first 3-4 months, I think we did use much more functionality what we did use before when we didn't have IBP. And also, especially for the central planning team, there was a lot of benefit because we had all figures without any consolidation. So there was no manual work required. So we had all ready at once. And of course, now this year, when we started the new improvement project, there are always new ideas and there are also new functionalities, quarterly releases. So you can continue to enable new functionalities, and the requirements are also changing and updating and are more challenging. But overall, I think it was the right decision to move to IBP.
Good. So I hear you say that the quality of the output of the planning process improved and everybody's happy with that, which is of course great. What I would also really be interested in is to learn from the quality and the accuracy of your planning process, of the output of your planning process, i.e. the planning itself. Did that improve compared to what you had before?
Of course, you can look then at forecasting accuracy and those hard KPIs. So there, we were already on a good level before we did implement IBP. Of course, you always can improve, but we were not aiming for this one, but we were more aiming then also on the supply side. That when we calculate like the intake or the replenishment plan, like the transport supply, transport receipt plan from the dependent demand in IBP, that this one is improving and that there is like one method to calculate that we have the right lead time, that everything is ready in time, of course, and regardless the time we look into the system. And there we definitely did improve, because then you also can control, like from a central side, the method you're using for the replenishment. And this was like, also a takeaway by implementing, because you cannot have different replenishment methods in this one tool. So there definitely we did improve a lot if we compare it to manual calculations in Excel before.
Great, thanks. Let's talk about the tool itself for 1 second, Michael. You've been using it yourself, like a user.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences in that area?
Yeah, like in addition to the IBP role, like as an IBP program manager, I did before more focus on the capacity management part, so more on the supply side in our organization. And this was completely new for the organization to use the tool. And I think the biggest advantage there is that you easily can compare data. So you have everything ready, like regardless which of the 6 factories data you're now analyzing. Then at least in Europe and the US, it's very fast. So one learning is also that in Asia, we struggle sometimes with the performance, but at least for me in Europe and other colleagues in Europe, it is very fast. So you don't need to load, sit for the computer and waiting until all the data is loaded. And also you have, like, everything is updating all the time. Like you have nice graphs, nice figures, which you can reuse, because only like, okay, the demand planning cycle is changing from November to December, and then you got your data ready.
Yeah.
And just the power of having all the data, like sometimes you have then ideas what you can improve with the business, but before you never had the data, or you had not the time or the effort wasn't worth to analyze it. And now you just can also use it as a data crunching because the tool is storing it as a snapshot, or you can send it somewhere else. So this is also, I think, a great benefit for me as a user with IBP.
It is actually great because it starts to sound like a commercial for SAP because you're still smiling about the look and feel of the IBP system, which is great. I mean, it's good that people actually like the system they work with. Very well.
Of course, we also had some challenges to be very honest, so it should not be, but overall, like with the improvement projects we are running now, I think more and more people are becoming happy, not only me, which was happy like over all the 2.5 years, but also we got support to resolve at least a bit of performance problems. So when we compare the situation November 2020 with November 2019, then also there we cannot complain. So we were learning and improving. So on the first day, you also have some struggles, of course.
Sure, sure. Maybe as my final question, Michael, you have been doing this project from Lumilet's side, the Apache project, together with McCoy. What are your experiences there?
Yeah, it was also, we defined a roadmap together, so we got great support there. So we had a couple of workshops to first define what is our goal or what are our key pain points where we need to improve and we want to improve. And the lesson was also like to analyze the process end to end. So we were doing analysis from all the process angles, from business process part and also from IT process and IT functionality. What are we doing currently? What can we do differently, or what do we need to do better? And then we were like setting up it together, and the idea was we got in from the McCoy team, like you, Maya, colleagues of you were supporting us there, that there are two major areas where we need to improve. And then the idea came up to start this Apache project, like this agile project where we got over at 3 months in summer the support, and with the approach to first get a new concept of forecast consumption, the new concept of planning forward without any offset planning. And in the beginning we were overwhelmed because everything was new again, so also the name, like everything changing in our planning. But the concept, I think, was good because like this, we were understanding from the beginning the impact and could then adapt continuously. Okay, we need to fine tune here the parameters, there we need to change. Of course, with IT projects, challenge is always data, so you need to integrate the data. But overall, we had only like a few weeks where we need to focus on and resolve all the remaining topics until we went live with our parallel cycle. So to compare the current business process with the new business process with the project. And there, we also get support in the business process. And there, I think it's also key that we don't only focus with you as McCoy on the IT part, but also on what is the impact for the business. And there, the colleagues still get all the support at the moment. So I think this is good, and we had like daily stand-ups to discuss the important topics. That there's no roadblock remaining for a month because we just don't have the time to discuss. So yeah, but the real outcome we see then in January, I think. Hopefully there the go live is then really there to switch off the old planning.
That's good to hear, Michael, that it's more than an IT project, and also that McCoy was able to deliver more than just the IT support, but also looking at it from a business point of view. And I also happen to know that we were able to help you out with the data topic by also applying our Perfect Planning Guard for you, which also increases the quality of the planning to a great extent. Thanks for that. Maybe as a final, very little question, very short, what are your key takeaways for this whole APO to IBP. What would you tell the people that are watching this webinar?
Yeah, like in the beginning, I was not in demand planning, I was supply planning. So I did not have any tool to plan. So the great thing is that you can plan end to end and you have one reference. And one key thing, like I like to think in processes as well, is you need to get rid of your old way of working and your thinking. So when you plan this project to move to IBP, of course you have your current processes, but yeah, don't feel like you need to copy your current way of working. So there are new opportunities, new improvements where you also can benefit, but this requires change from everyone. But in the end, this is easier than trying to customize each and every solution. So I think this is also one key learning after the 2 years with IBP.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michael, for all your learnings and takeaways. I guess, or I'm pretty sure actually, that our participants will greatly benefit from your insights here.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Welcome.
The best.
So yeah, as said by Tom, thank you very much, Michael, for helping us and giving your honest and open opinion on the roadmap you have performed together with Luminets to go to IBP. Raya, one of our consultants heavily involved, is in the chat box. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to ask. Let's move on. So for the next part, I would like to introduce my colleague Carla, and Carla will guide us through a short demo on the response and supply part. Hi, Carla.
Hi, hello everybody. Thanks, Idun, for the presentation. So yeah, we can start with the second demo. And yeah, we were talking before about the time series planning. So now we are going to focus in the order-based planning. That's what you can do in the response and supplies module, basically. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, basically in the operational planning, you can generate a finite capacity supply plant based on prioritized and categorized demand. How do you do it? First of all, you create the supply plant and you prioritize your demand, your forecast, and your sales order. And also you take into account your supply chain constraints. As optionally, you can generate and provide allocations to ATP for online confirmations or sales order. Once you have done this, you can create an order confirmation of this supply plan, taking into account the priorities, the constraints, and the allocations if you did that. And finally, you can do a deployment plan of these confirmations. And here you can see a high-level overview. So what do we do? First of all, you have your master data and transactional data. You can integrate it. Then you can do a configuration of different profiles and settings. And you can always integrate everything to your execution systems. Normally, you can monitor and control all the planning process, every step you have in it. And you can always run your supply planning run. What can you do there? So you can analyze your packing and gating factors. You can do manual inputs. You can do management by exception, order-based priority heuristics, and also run the optimization. Basically, you start with your unconstrained forecast, and that's why you need to run your constrained forecast run. And it has 3 different steps. The first one is your demand prioritization. Why do you do that? Because sometimes you know that for this demand, you need to supply it first, this one you need to supply it secondly, etc., etc., etc. And that's why you do this first step. Afterwards, you do your constraint plan. Here you do a supply plan taking into account these priorities, and afterwards you can confirm the different sales orders. And finally, you have the gating factors up. So based in your constraint plan, you can do an efficient multi-level visualization of all your constraints and analyze efficiently your root cause problems. For the confirmations, what can you do? So you have your sales order in S/4HANA, then you can send them to IBP, and then you can do your confirmation run and always do the simulation and scenarios as Jeroen explained before. Afterwards, you can do your demand prioritization, and finally do your priority-based multi-level planning. But now let's see how demand prioritization works, how you can create the different rules. So you have your forecast and your sales orders, and you know that they have priorities. First, you set up some rules in the system, and afterwards you apply them to your planning run and confirmation run. You have a sequence of demand, of forecast and sales operation, and you divide it into segments. What can you do in each segment? So in one segment, you can do flexible segmentation criteria. You can reuse this criteria across different rules. Each segment contains different sorts of attributes. You can do leverage with SAP HANA rules framework. It is designed for the end user maintenance, and you can have multiple name rules for different situations. So in the end, all the results have a unique sequence of demands. But now let's see an example, because maybe this was too theoretical. So you have all your demand, forecast and sales orders, everything is mixed. And first of all, you want to do a segmentation. In our case, we decided to do it by demand type. So we have demand type A, demand type B, and demand type C. But then in each segment, we want to sort this demand. So for example, for the demand type A, we want to sort it by request date. For the demand type B, by demand class, and for demand type C, by the order entry date. And after this sorting, you can create your rule. And now maybe we can go to the demo, where I'll show all these processes. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to be in S.
Carla, you're on mute.
Yeah, now and I wanted to show you that in S4, these orders are not confirmed yet. That's what we are going to do in IBP. So now I'm going to close S4 and go back to IBP. And the first thing I want to do is to check the projected stock, what we have. So in this example, we are using this material in this location. And we want to check the stock for 28 days in the future. So we check, okay, we'll have a stock shortage. And if we select this line, we can have more details about it. So as you can see here below, we can check the requested date, the type of receipt, the item category, the source, destination, mode of transport, and also the value of the projected stock. So now let's go to our Excel user interface. And here we see that our total receipts are lower than the total forecast unconstrained. And that's why we want to run the forecast constraint run. For that, we are going back to our web user interface, and we can do it really easily from here, from the Excel, just pressing this button. In order to run the job, we need to go to the application job app. And for that, we created a template, as I'm going to show you. So first of all, we select our template, the MS2 constraint forecast run. We want to run it immediately. And our template has 3 steps. The first one, we clear the constraint forecast just in case there was something. Afterwards, we run the constraint forecast. And finally, we copy it to our allocations. Afterwards, we do the input of different parameters for each step. We check they are fine. And if that's the case, we just schedule the job. And as you can see, right now is in process. Meanwhile, while it's running, we want to change the key figures that we see in our planning view. That's why we are going to edit it. And we don't want to see the total receipts anymore, but the fair share demand between our customers. Then the constraint forecast, the one that's in time, late, and unfulfilled. We also want to see our allocations, our adjusted allocations, and also the consumed and remaining. Then the sales orders, the requested, the confirmed, the ones that are confirmed in time, late, or unfulfilled, and finally, the open forecast. And once we have all our key figures, we just press OK, and we'll see that our planning view changed. So we run our constraint forecast, and here we can see the different values of it. So we have our forecast constraint, the one that's in time, late, and unfulfilled, and these quantities are also copied into our allocations, as you can see. We also have some sales orders for this customer, but they are not yet confirmed. And the same for the customer too. We have our forecast constraint, the one that's in time, late, unfulfilled, and the different allocations, and also some sales orders. But now imagine that for some reason, we want to change our allocations. So in this case, we will put 30 units more in this customer, and here 30 units less, and we save the data. Now you'll see that our allocations final will change to the new adjusted figures, and this allocation final is the ones that will be used for the confirmation run. So here you see it changed for customer 2 and also for customer 1. And now let's go and do the confirmation run. For that, we are going back to our web user interface, and we also have a template for that. So we select it, the confirmation run. We are executing it right now. And here we have two steps. So the first one is the confirmation run, and the second step is the one that we are sending our confirmations to our S4 system. We have some parameters for each of the steps, and if they are fine, we just schedule it. And here you can see that it's in process. Meanwhile, we were talking about priorities. So I want to show you how to check the different segments and the priorities of the rules you defined. So we go to this app. We select the profile we created, in this case, this one, for our material in our location. And here you can see that we have two different segments, a segment for sales and a segment for the forecast. And in the segment of sales, we have more different segments. So for example, we want to sort for the customer class, also the requested date, and that's why we have the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 priorities, etc. And if we scroll, we can see information about all these prioritizations. And now the confirmation run finished. So I'm going to show you the confirmations in the system. For that, we go to our View Confirmations app. We select again our material and location. And here we can see the different sales orders. So now if we scroll a bit, we'll see that all of them are confirmed, 100%. However, some of them are with delay. In this case, 90% of them, as you can see, are confirmed with delay. If we click on them, we can even see more details. So for example, the requested quantity is 100 on this day, but we could only confirm 10 on this day. The rest are confirmed for later. And we can also check this in our Excel user interface. So we go there and we refresh our view. And as you can see, now we can see our confirmed orders, the ones that are in time and late for both customers. And they take into account the allocations that were calculated in the previous constraint forecast run. And now we created some alerts for the sales orders that are confirmed late. We want to see that. And that's why we have the Intelligent Visibility app that can show us these alerts. So we introduce our product and select the alert. Oh, okay, sorry, I'm in the wrong planning area. I'm going to change to the response and supply one. And as I was saying, we can select our material and the alert that we subscribe, the sales orders that are confirmed late. In this map, we can see all the locations we have, and we see a red 5, which means that there are 5 alerts in this cluster. So here we see different locations, and the alerts are in the first one. So if we click, we can see more details about them. So for example, the value, the material, the location, the day, and the customer. But we can click again, and we can have even more details. For the first one, for example, we have a sales order of 50 units, and only 14 were confirmed in time, and 35 were confirmed late. If we scroll down, we can also see other information. In this case, for example, we can check the allocations overview and more information about the sales orders that are there. If we select one of them, the first one, we can also see the gating factors. Why were they confirmed late? Here, for example, for a resource overload and also the product allocation quantity is exceeded. And now we want to navigate to our S4 system. And from here you can do, we select our first order, and then we want to check the sales order there. That's why we go here. If you remember, we were checking order 171. So now we'll see in S4 that we are in this order, and let's check the confirmations there. So if you remember, we didn't have anything confirmed, and now we see that all the quantities are confirmed, and the ones are late and the ones that are not. And this was the demo of the second part. Thanks, Jeroen.
Thank you very much, Carla. Yeah, I'll take over and start sharing my screen. One second. Let's go back to the presentation. There we are. So what Carla just explained was just a glimpse of what is possible in the response and supply, so the order-based module. And before in the other demo, we have just showed a glimpse of what is possible in the S&OP module of IBP. Of course, there's a lot more possibilities and processes and details which we can share for you. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out, and we can always have a more detailed demonstration and also maybe a little bit more specific to the business. Today, we just wanted to give you a glimpse of the possibilities you have within the different modules of the IBP system. So now we're at the last part of this presentation, and we have invented a tool on top of IBP and in between IBP and your source system, which we call the Perfect Planning Guard. And before we dive into this tool, just a brief overview, because what you have seen today in terms of small demos on IBP, everything consists around data. So in each and every S&OP or IBP process, data and the quality of data is key. So I think the headliner is already a nice example. If it's the first day of your S&OP implementation, calm down and start with data, because you can have the best-in-class tool like IBP is, still you are depending on the consistency of data flowing into your system. And there we see a lot of issues, and also in existing implementations, is that master data is key in every process, and especially in supply chain process, because you want to make sure that you are planning only on relevant combinations and that you're only planning with relevant data. This is what we see a very big challenge, and also in several reports from Gartner and other research companies, you see that the lack of availability of data or missing data is really a pain point in all supply chain solutions. And we think we have a solution for that, which we call the Perfect Planning Guard. And I would like to explain to you how this tool can help you to optimize your supply chain. First of all, as said before, even if you have a best-in-class system like IBP, you are depending on the information coming from your source system. On the left side, I represented, for example, two source systems. It could be ECC, this could be S4HANA. You can have data from APO, from IBP, any related database, or even file uploads to source your supply chain with the correct data you need to really run your heuristic and to run your supply chain within IBP. If there is an issue already in this sourcing, so if the data is not consistent from the source, or if you have multiple source systems, if the data is not consistent between those two source systems, you will replicate the inconsistency within your IBP system via the integration flow. And of course, if this is the case, your IBP will run based on partially inconsistent data, which will mean that on the outside of your plan, your supply plan, and your visibility, even though it's beautiful, it will still consist those inconsistencies. And that's something you would like to avoid. And that's an issue we have seen in multiple implementations. And for this reason, we decided to include and to invent a tool called the Perfect Planning Guard. And the goal of the Perfect Planning Guard is to be a kind of middleware between your source system and the CPIDS. The CPIDS is the way how you integrate the data from the source into the cloud, which you can then use in your supply chain and in your heuristic. And if you put the tool in between, and the tool will guarantee that all the information flowing from the several source systems into your IBP system will be consistent and will be checked before they can be replicated. And this will help you to support that only validated combinations will flow into your IBP planning system. And via that way, you will only plan with validated data from the sources, meaning the outcome of your planning result will be based on valid and controlled source data. So this is an issue we try to solve. A little bit technical view, maybe I will quickly jump over it and then we will dive more into the functionality. But if you have those sources, usually we will put the tool, we will call it the Perfect Planning Guard, and the tool will work with the planning object cockpit. And here you can control all your planning combinations which you will use within your IBP system. Usually we base this on a BW system. It could also be integrated in ECC or within S4HANA. That depends on your system landscape. And then the tool will control with several outflows data to insert update, so to really change or to insert new combinations, but also to help you to control the deletion process, because we do see also within the deletion process, it is not very easy to really control your deletion and to make sure that you do not delete too much data from your system. So also there you would like some kind of validation to make sure that you can only delete when you have passed certain checks, like for example, a simple one, there is no more demand available on a product location combination, only then I allow the system to make this deletion. So as said before, as the planner, I'm working in what we call the planner object cockpit. And here you can control on the left side all the data you have in your IBP system. There are two folders, one folder really for the master data, it could be single data, it could be combined data. And then below you have your planning level, meaning your actual information. So here the actuals, the forecast, the demand, everything will be stored. And you can even cross-compare if you have multiple planning areas with each other to, again, make sure that there's consistency even within IBP if you have two planning areas. In the middle section of the screen, as a user, you can work and you can really define your planning combination. A simple traffic light system will alert you if there is an issue. For example, there is a planning combination in IBP which does not have source information in your ECC system. An example here is that there is a new product on the location, but within your ECC, this product location does not exist. So you are planning with master data inconsistent compared to ECC. It could also be yellow, and yellow means that there's, for example, an attribute difference. So if the attributes, which are important for reporting and for navigation, if they are different between your IBP system and your source system, you will be alerted. Last but not least, you can also update like mass information or maintain specific IBP master data, like lot size policy or planning units, which is not really sourced from the ECC system. So usually this is sourced from BW or sometimes even via flat file. The tool can help you to maintain and support also this process to make sure that all the data you have in IBP is maintained from this single point of view. And then on the right side of the screen, there's additional information, like for example, what was the last date of my forecast, and what is the remaining forecast on this planning combination, which could help me to identify which objects are obsolete and which ones I could possibly delete from my system. So the tool has 4 main functionalities. The first one is what we call smart creation, and that's an issue we see at many of our implementations. At this moment, there's not really a tool to help you to create new and, more important, valid planning combinations in your planning system. How does it work? You simply enter the tool, and when you are in the tool, you can make a selection. For example, I would like now for this new plan customer to create a new planning combination. When I'm in the tool, I can see that this customer does exist, which is indicated by the green traffic lights. So this customer does exist within my source system. And now I would like to make new product listings for this customer. So if I move to the customer sourcing, I'm a customer source, I can see that for this customer, I can list these products and they are sourced from different source locations. And these combinations are only created based on rules we have defined and based on availability of master data in your ECC or other source systems. So this will guarantee that any combination you will create has valid master data in your source system, meaning you will always have consistent planning combinations within your IBP system. The second main pillar is the smart maintenance. So IBP can help you, as said, to maintain specific items you have within your planning system, which are not really sourced from, for example, ECC, or which are combined master data objects. The system will help you with a technique which we would like to refer to as intelligent grouping. What you see in this example is that I have a couple of products in my IBP and supply system, which are connected to one of my main resources, so one of my work centers in my ECC system, for example. And then from the bill of material, in this case, I can define which is the liquid going into this bill of material. And via that way, I can make easy groupings, and via those groupings, I can set planning relevant indicators based on logical groupings within my master data. So this will help me not only to group, but also to maintain specific objects for those groupings within my master data. Besides that, the groupings could also give you insight on lifecycle management of your products. So there can be an easy grouping where you can see that product A is following product B, is following product C, and that you can see the life cycle of your product and to see the existence of planning combinations between the different stages of the life cycle. Then another issue we will try to solve with this is the smart deletion. So the tool can help you to support the deletion process and to make sure that you can only delete a planning combination while it's not valid anymore and while there's no data anymore. You can even include a 4I principle that before the deletion is really sent, that a colleague or a team member approves the deletions just by including this 4I principle. So how does this look? A simple 3-step method. First is you make a certain selection of a product or of a product group where you would like to see if there are obsolete objects available within your IBP system. So here you can see in the top section, I have a couple of SKUs, and those SKUs, they don't have any data anymore, meaning there are obsolete items within my system. I can mark them for deletion, and that mark for deletion can have checks included that this set can only be done when the total sum is 0. So meaning I can only set the deletion flag if the system allows me to not delete data I still use within my supply chain system. And then the last step could be included. It doesn't have to be included, but you can have a 4I principle that somebody needs to mark it for deletion. So one person sets a flag for deletion, or perhaps you allow the system to set this deletion flag. You as a user control this, and then you send this deletion to the IBP system in an overnight run. So this gives you full control on the end-to-end process from creation to maintenance to deletion. And then we move to the last pillar of the 4. And that is the smart monitoring. So using this planning object cockpit as a user, I can now work from a central point of view, maintaining, creating, deleting all my planning combinations within my IBP system, and everything will be validated against your source system. So that will give you more control on your planning combinations and to assure that the data which you have in IBP is always consistent data. So why should you use the perfect planning guard? I think the message was quite clear, but you can improve your planning result with 5, maybe even up to 10%, depending on the current consistency of your master data. For example, think about sourcing rules or location products which do not exist, which you are planning, so disappearing forecast. Those issues can be tackled using the tool. We think it's a no-brainer in terms of our ROI. We can implement it in a short amount of time, making sure that you can optimize your supply chain by having only perfect planning combinations available within your IBP system. You gather all the maintenance, the monitoring to a single point of view, so you will make sure that all the relevant information is accessible, maintainable from this planning cockpit, giving you more insight on your planning combinations and more control on your IBP system. It will support you in lifecycle management processes. It helps you group. It could also help you to define successors and maintain the lifecycle information in IBP. So that will really help you to maintain and again assure that you have perfect life cycles within your IBP system. And last but not least, you can support in complex product and location sourcing rules. So the system can help you give insight on sourcing ratios and sourcing rules to be sure again that all the combinations are created from an end-to-end perspective. And doing all that should give you more time to focus on what is important in your supply chain and hopefully spend less time on checking and validating consistency of master data. And last but not least, we are really proud that 2 weeks ago with this tool, we won the Ibp Innovation Challenge for 2020. So the tool has been recognized by not only SAP, but also the user community. We already have a couple of enthusiastic users, and they are really saving time by using the tool, by only focusing on what is important in their supply chain. If you have any questions, again, feel free to send them in the chat box or otherwise reach out to us. And that brings us at the end of today's session. So first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for your attention and of course for attending this meeting. We do hope that we have given you a little bit of insight in IBP, the possibilities, and also how our tool, the Perfect Planning Guard, could possibly help you to even optimize your current IBP system even more. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out. You can contact us. My information is on the screen. And for everybody within this call, we also offer free workshops on IBP or a free workshop on the Perfect Planning Guard to see what are the possibilities for this tool, both IBP and the Perfect Planning Guard within your company. So I'm not sure if there's any open questions. Maybe Raya, Walter, I cannot see the chat box at this moment. Are there any open questions you would like to share?
There's just a new one from Ilse. Hi Jeroen, what is the IBP alternative for CTM for production planning?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part, Walter.
What is the IBP alternative for CTM capable to match?
Yeah, that depends how you run the process. So for CTM, of course, you have different kinds of heuristics within IBP. So we can do constraint planning. We can also do, as shown by Carla, the constraint heuristic, and that could give you the CTM capabilities. And that combined with, of course, the order confirmations. So it depends a little bit on the process, but we can solve this either in SNOP by finite planning, or we can solve this in the response and supply module.
Okay, then I think we answered all the questions.
Okay, then yeah, I would like to thank you. As said, we will send to everybody the recording and the slides we have used. Feel free to reach out if there are any additional questions, and I would wish you a nice evening or a nice day or morning ahead. Thank you very much, and looking forward to see you during our next session. Oh, last but not least, If you want to see more, we just launched a new YouTube channel, McCoy TV, and the first pilot is on IBP. So here we have another demo and explanation on IBP, and a new series will be entered soon, and also other areas will soon upload more videos. So check this out. We will also send the link in the thank you note from this webinar. Again, thank you very much and have a great day ahead.